In this video I will show you how to set up a two-dimensional image so that a three-dimensional object created in Blender can be either animated or placed in position and also cast a shadow. Before setting the scene up, I recommend that you change a few things in this right hand panel. So with your pointer over the edge, hold down your left mouse button and drag this panel over. Now your render data button should be selected. This is a little button with a camera in it. If it's not selected, then left click on it. And in the dimensions section, where it says resolution, X 1920 px pixels, Y 1080, change these to match the size of your image. What this effectively do is when you look down the camera, which we'll be doing during most of this rendering, the view will be the same size as the image. And this makes it a lot easier for setting up the image, but basically you'll see what I mean when we go a bit further on. If you've clicked on this camera, just right click back on the cube. So once you've set up your resolution on the X and Y section, also look for the little world button. This has actually got a world in it, and left click on it. And then next to where it says ambient occlusion, in the little box, left click so a tick comes up. You'll be using this later on to change some of the lighting, but also what this means is that you'll be able to see the image once you've unwrapped it. The other thing, the distance between the camera and any object is set at clipping size or distance of 100. Now obviously I don't know what image you're going to be using and what you're trying to do with it, so you might find that you need to be able to view from the camera to your object further than 100. So right click on your camera and then look for the little button with a camera in it again, or it's more like a projector actually. It's between the chain links and the checker sort of button. Left click on it, and under clipping where it says end 100, it might pay to set this at a higher setting. So for instance, left click in the end box and type in something like 1000, and that will increase the distance between the camera and the objects that you're working with substantially. Okay, if you've clicked on this camera, right click on the cube, and we're sort of good to go. Now I've chosen to do this in Blender Render. It's a bit fiddly and probably not quite as easy to do as in Cycles Render, but the lighting is a little bit easier to set up. So if you've never done it before, this is a good starting point, and then you can sort of move further forward and make more complicated backgrounds and work in Cycles Render. But for now we'll do this in Blender Render, and hopefully it'll give you some idea of how to get on and do scenes that you can animate and put shadows on. So with your cube highlighted, press 1 on your numbers pad and then roll your middle mouse to zoom in a bit. Press tab on your keyboard to go into edit mode, and then A to deselect everything. Now hold down shift and right click in the left and right top corners, so that you've basically selected the two left and right vertices. Now press X on your keyboard and left click on vertices, and that will delete those vertices. Hit your spacebar, and in the actual search box type the word align. Then left click align camera to view. If you roll your middle mouse, you'll increase the view size or decrease it, and then press N on your keyboard. Drag this slider until you can see the words lock camera to view, and left click in the little box next to it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to match this edge of this sort of what's left of this cube, so it's just outside the view of the camera. And basically this, as I was saying before, I've made my image to match the default size of the camera, which we were talking about in the render section earlier on. So anyway, the easiest way to do this is first hold down Control followed by your middle mouse button, and then move your mouse, and that will, you can zoom in and out a lot smoother than just rolling your mouse. And basically line your edge up so it's just below the bottom edge of the camera view. Once you've done this, go back into this box and left click in where the tick is next to camera view to deselect the lock camera to view. Then press N to close that panel down. Now whilst in edit mode still, press A on your keyboard, and we're going to expand this or increase the size of this I don't know what you want to call it now, it's not a cube, is it? What's left of this cube on the x-axis. So press SX or S followed by X, and then move your mouse till that bottom edge is just slightly outside, each corner is slightly outside the range of the camera view. Now come to the bottom of this screen and look for the little cube with a highlighted line on it or edge. Now this is your edge select button. Left click on it, and then right click on the middle edge, and again press S followed by X and move your mouse so that this edge is just slightly outside the range of the camera viewer, and left click to accept. Now right click on the top edge and press 3 on your numbers pad. Roll your middle mouse to zoom out a bit, and with your pointer over the green arrow, hold down your left mouse button and drag this all the way over. Now this is what I was talking about when we were talking about the clipping, how far the camera views an object. I'm just going to hold down Shift followed by my middle mouse button and move this screen over a bit. This is going to be the image, and it depends on where you want to place your objects, depends on the shape to a certain extent and how far back, say, this line needs to be. Obviously if you wanted to place an image here, it wouldn't be that easy. You'd need to make this line further back. So as I've said in my introduction, this is just a guide. So anyway, having said that, I'm going to right click on the top edge again, and I'm going to go into camera view. Now with my pointer over the blue arrow, left click and drag this view or this edge up so it's just past the camera range or edge of the camera view. Then again I'm going to press S followed by X, and I'm going to drag my mouse so that edge just goes past the camera view. Doesn't have to be 100% accurate. And left click to accept. Now we're going to put some loop cuts through this. We're going to divide this this cut cube up. Now normally you can do this by holding down Control followed by R, but with my screencast on, mine doesn't work. So another way you can do this is if you go to the left of the screen and drag this slider down till you can see the button that says loop cut and slide. So I'm going to just left click on this, and then I'm going to place my pointer to the top of this screen. Then I'm going to type 20. So I've got 20 loop cuts. I'm going to left click, and then I'm going to right click to accept. And again I'm going to go into the loop cut, and I'm going to place the pointer in this area here, to the sort of the top back edge of this panel or pane or whatever you want to call it. And again, I'm going to type 20, and I'm going to left click, then right click to accept. I'm going to do one more set of loop cuts, so I'm going to left click on loop cut, and right at the bottom, which is this bottom edge, so I've got a pink line going across. I'm going to type 20, I'm going to left click and right click to accept. Now if you press 3 on your numbers pad again, you'll see that you've got this kind of setup, and hopefully you'll start getting the idea of how you're going to set this up. And as I said before, the angle of the camera, everything, you know, it's not always as straightforward as this, but this is a good way of starting through the camera view. In fact, if you're looking down on an object, it's actually a lot easier to do set this up than looking straight ahead. I'll go back into camera view by pressing 0 on my numbers pad, and then I'll press A to select everything. Basically, A deselects and also selects. Now, the camera, this is based on looking straight ahead through the camera, so your sky and your ground basically would go to infinity and disappear in the middle of the camera. So that's probably one of the easiest ones to do when the camera's looking directly ahead. Also, I recommend that you use your own pictures, because you know how you've set the camera up, and you know the kind of angles you've used. But anyway, let's get on with setting this image up, or else we'll be here all day. Okay, and as I said before, A to deselect, A select everything. Come back over to this panel and look for the texture button. This is a button with a red and white text checkerboard grid on it, and left click on it, and making sure that this button here, this other texture grid or checkerboard, is selected by left clicking on it. Left click on new, left click where it says open, and then by using your left mouse button, navigate to the folder where your image that you're going to use is stored. If you want to see the image, to the left of where it says normal, there's a little button with 4 icons in it. Just left click on that. Now I'm going to use this image here. Now sometimes you can just double click on it, it'll open it. Doesn't always work, but we'll try it. And it did, it opened it. So double clicked using my left mouse button. Just above where it says brush, there's a materials button. This has got an orange disc in it. Left click on this, and then next to the box that says text, to the left hand side, there's another little checkerboard button. Left click on this. Now you should be able to see a little picture of your image. Left click on this. Now if you hold down Control followed by Z, your image will open up like this. Unfortunately, it never works first time. I don't know why, but it's quite easy to rectify. In the box to the right of the texture box, look for the cross and left click on it. And then again, go back into this checkerboard button, this texture button, and next under image, next to the image that you've selected, left click on the cross again. Then left click on open, and as before, using your left mouse button, navigate to the folder where you've stored the image, and then using your left mouse button, double click on the image again, and then come back to the, just above where it says brush, come back to the materials button just above it, the orange disc, and then to the left of new, left click on this checkerboard here, and again left click on the texture which has got your image to the next of it. And what you'll find is this happens. You'll get loads of little pictures. In edit mode still, press U on your keyboard and then left click on project from view bounds. And you've now got a very simple three-dimensional background. One thing you'll find that you'll get sort of shading on this. Now we'll get rid of this by going up to the top of the screen and left clicking on the orange data button, or the materials data button, which has got an orange disc in it. And the reason you get different sort of shading is this. If you look at this image here, you'll see there's a brighter sort of dot or a circle on it. This is what they call a specular, and you'll find that underneath specular the intensity is set at about 0.5, so the higher you go, the more sort of I don't know, it's reflection really. So anyway, left click on the intensity and just type 0 and hit return. Just to see that your image is actually working and you're not getting any strange lines, because the one thing in Blender which I don't know why, the image that you'll see through the Blender view will be blurry. So just press F12 on your keyboard, just render the picture to make sure you're happy with the view. If you hold down shift now, because you're in UV in the UV viewer, if you hold down shift and your middle mouse button, just have a look round. You can zoom in, just see if you're happy. Now I know about across here, that's where the I kicked back the view and no, I can't see any lines, so I'm happy with that. Roll my middle mouse and I'm going to center up everything again. Okay, to come out of this viewer, bottom left of this screen, if you hover your cursor over this button, it'll say UV image editor. Left click here and then left click 3D view. Now if you press if you press 3 on your numbers pad and then hold down your middle mouse button, you'll see what you've actually created is an elongated sort of background. And as I was saying before, the images I wanted to use are on this path. It's not perfect, and it's only meant to be a basic sort of introduction of how to do this, but effectively now you've got something you can work on. If for instance you know your path went further back, you may have to change the settings, but it's not easy, not difficult. So hopefully this is give you some idea how to do it. Anyway, I'm going to press 0 on my keyboard again to go into camera view, and then I'm going to import something. I'm relatively new to all this myself, so I've got a Make Human character I'm going to import into this, so take a few seconds to set that up. So what I'm going to do is import it and then come back to this video in a minute. Okay, so I've just brought the Make Human image into this scene and sort of set her up. Sometimes they don't come in first time, you've got to sort of delete them and reload them, so that's why I had a bit of a break. Okay, now again, as I said, with this sort of camera pointing forward, this is probably one of the easiest ones to do, because if you press 3 on your numbers board or on your numbers pad, roll your middle mouse button to zoom in, press F5 to go into orthographic view as well, so that's 3 plus 5 equals orthographic. With your pointer over the blue arrow, hold down your left mouse button and just drag your object so that it's in line with the bottom edge of this plane that you've created. once your object, whether it's a character or just a basic cube, is in line, again go into camera view, and you can hold down shift followed by Z, and that'll take you into rendered view. As you can see, you've already got some shadows showing already, but obviously she's far too big, so we need to resize her. So it's actually easier sometimes to flip between rendered and solid view by using this button here. This is a little orange disc in it to the right of object view. So left click and then left click solid, and with your character still selected or your box selected, just press S and resize it a bit. I'm going to take it so our eye line's sort of in the middle, and then left click here, go for rendered, and maybe make her a little bit bigger. Okay, back to rendered. She's probably too big, but anyway, this isn't more about setting this up. Just change her, bring her down a little bit. She's obviously still standing above the ground. Back to rendered. That'll do. Okay. Now in this in the XY axis, wherever you move your object, it will always be on the surface that is level. The only other thing now is to sort of set up the shadows. I'm just gonna keep mucking around with this. If you want to, in camera view, if you want to move an object on the Y axis and you can't see the Y arrow to click on it, just press G and then followed by Y, and then you'll be able to move your mouse to move your object on the Y axis. So that's G followed by Y, and then move your mouse. In fact, you can do that on the X and the Z axis as well if you want. So I'm going to move her a little bit forward. So have a look, what she look like now. That's a little bit better. Okay. I think we'll rotate. Obviously, again, if you, another thing to rotate, you can rotate on any of the axis. So I'm going to rotate it on the Z axis. So I'm going to press R followed by Z, and I'm going to move my mouse to rotate the object. And again, back into render to see what she looks like. She's a little bit. Sometimes this is takes longer than anything else setting up the view, but anyway, you get the idea. I'm not going to do much more with this. That'll do. One more thing. Crack her back here a bit. Yep, that'll do. I think she's probably too big for this picture, but can be here all day otherwise. Okay, let's set the lighting up. Just at the top of the timeline, with your pointer over the edge, hold down your left mouse button and drag this view up. So you just basically can see the actual your view. And then to the bottom of the screen, left click on the timeline button, and then left click 3D view. And then you're looking for the lamp. Now this will have a little, this will be a little black dot with a couple of rings around it. Right click on this, and then your lamp data button should come up, and you can then change things in this. I'm going to left click on the button next to the point that says sun, and you can see the shadows going in this direction to the left. To be honest with you, I can't quite remember where these shadows went, so I think they sort of went from left to right. So I'm going to just press G with this lamp selected and bring the lamp over to this side, and then I'm going to rotate it by pressing R followed by Z, and then move my mouse so that the sun is pointing towards my character. You can't really see her that well, but she's just down here. And then I'll press 1 with the pointer in this section. In actual fact, they're set up nicely. If you want to change the angle in this view, 1 on your numbers pad, press RY, and again you can rotate the view or the direction that the sun's pointing in, and then once you're happy, left click. This screen will disappear, but I find this is the easiest way to set a lot of things up. Just takes a little bit longer. Right, okay, it's not looking too bad. Certain things you can change in this section. You can change the energy, so if you left click in the energy section and then drag your mouse, you can reduce the power of the sun, or you can increase it. Depends which direction you go. Right increases it and left decreases it. I'm going to go and set this at 1. It's not looking too bad. There are other things that, you know, you can go on forever. The point of this video really was to show you how to set the background up, not how to and a little bit about doing shadows. Okay, the other thing, go back into the world data button, and as we highlighted the ambient occlusion right at the beginning. Now if you left click in the box that says factor, you can adjust this. Take it down to about 0.5, see what it looks like. Take it back up again, left click and move your mouse until you're happy with the shadow that's being cast, and also the reflections on your object. Just keep going until you're happy with it all. I think that looks reasonably good. Okay, and that's basically it. Like I said before, this view, your image will be blurred, but that's sorted out in the render. Finally, render this image. You can change certain settings. You can either render it by pressing F12, and when it's finished, saving it. But we'll just go into the render thing if you've never done it before. I should imagine you probably have, but anyway, look for the little camera button again and left click on it. This is your render button. Then drag this slider down. Don't worry about the output and saving that. You can do that after you've rendered it. And in the box it says PNG, left click, and you've got different image codecs you can use. PNG is perfectly fine, or you can change it to JPEG. I'll leave it at PNG. And unlike Cycles Render, there's not so many things you can do in this section. And that's it really. So all you need now to do is left click on the render button, and your image will be rendered. Come down here to the button that says image, left click on this, and then left click save as image. Go to wherever you're going to save your image. I always dump everything on my desktop and then worry about it afterwards. Then in this box where it says untitled, left click and give it a title. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to call it shadow. And then left click possibly twice on save as image, and you should find that your image will be ready and waiting for you. I don't think that looks too bad for a quick render. The only other thing, obviously I'm not going to go into doing animation, and that will be here forever and a day. This works with animation as well. It's a bit fiddly. I didn't get mine correct for this intro, to be honest with you, but my main point of doing this was to show you how to do shadow cast. Setting up stuff can be a bit fiddly. It's doable. You'll need to resize if you're going to use a make human object. You'll need to resize it and reset the settings. I'm not going to bother doing that. It's another tutorial for another day. So hopefully that's been of some help to somebody out there, one person maybe, and thank you for watching. Cheers.